You know, one thing I figured out is having a baby. I'm really starting to like coffee now. This is not coffee, but I'm drinking coffee like on a daily basis now, and I feel like an adult. No, I mean, like, I've already had coffee today, and I've had coffee yesterday, and basically every morning I have to get up early. I'm getting coffee. All right. So where did I leave off last class? Okay, so we did the FK con groups, we did the offset groups for each one of the cons, and then we did the nesting so that we have a functional FK con group. Okay. Let's go ahead and I'm actually going to take the FK shoulder offset group. I'm going to group it to itself. And then what I'm going to do is go ahead and mirror it over to with a duplicate special. So I can go ahead and get the right arm as well.
What were your duplicate special options?
I think it's just like negative on the X. Like -1 on the X.
Okay.
I think I set it up like a few weeks ago and I just never changed it because that's usually what I'm doing with duplicate special anyways. Alright, so I need to go ahead and change this name from left to right. So let's go under modify, search and replace names. And we're going to do left, right, and replace. There we go. All right, and we'll just kind of let this guy hang out here for a little bit. But the point is now we have our FK controllers for both arms, and since we did a duplicate special, I can now grab both of these controllers, and I can rotate in one direction, and it'll raise them both up or lower them both down. And I really like that. It makes it super simple for me just to kind of go in and move like both arms in a direction that I'm looking for in a really quick and easy way. All right, let's go ahead and get in our IK controller. So I'm going to go and do a prism. Usually I do like a cube, but that's kind of boring. Let's do hexagon. What does that look like? Yeah, that'll work. All right. So I'm just going to go and grab the hexagon, modify, freeze transformation, IK, hand, con, right, not right, left. Okay. Now I want to go ahead and move it. I want to maintain my orientations. So how am I going to move it and maintain my orientations at the same time? I want to group it. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and name this IK offset con group left. So I'm going to go ahead and take the group. I'm going to move the group up to the wrist. And then I'm going to go ahead and rotate it to where it is basically kind of encapsulating the wrist.
Is it center on the wrist or the null joint?
It's actually on the null joint, but I think the position here makes a little more sense than having it there. So you can kind of identify it, but we can always move the pivot point to the wrist. So when we get to that, I'll move the pivot point over. Okay, so that'll work. Let's go ahead and grab the controller, hold down D, V, and snap back. So now when we rotate the wrist around, it's going to rotate from that pivot point of the joint. All right, grab the con group, group it to itself, and then I'm going to go ahead and duplicate special. And then we will change the lefts to rights. Okay. Any questions so far? No? We're good? Okay. All right. So we need to go ahead and put in our clavicle controller. So let's go and do that. Let's do, I kind of like these arcs. I think they look kind of nice in order to do the clavicle controllers. So I'm going to go ahead and grab it. Let's move it up to 90 degrees. Let's go and name it Clavicon left. I'm going to group it to itself, and we will move it up here to the clavicle. I'm going to rotate it out so it's a little more visible. Make sure it is actually visible through the, yeah, there we go. Okay, so it's going to sit right there. Okay. All right, group it, duplicate special, so now we have the other one. Actually, to be honest, I don't even need that secondary group. I'm gonna hit Shift P and Shift P. I'm just gonna take both these offset groups, and this one we're gonna change from right to left to right. Get rid of those extraneous groups. Okay. All right, so I want my controller, the FK controllers, to follow under the clavicle controller. So what do I need to do in order to have that happen? Ideas? Huh? What kind of parent? No. Definitely not constrained. So I want this controller to follow freely under this controller. Simple question. Yes, I would nest them. But since we have offset groups, what do I need to also do? Well, they're already grouped. What did I do specifically with all the offset groups and controllers last class? Because it's not just a simple nesting. I'm also making sure that I'm taking the offset groups and I'm including that in the grouping. So I'm not just going to take this controller and hit P. I'm going to go in and grab the offset group for this controller, and then I'm going to go under and move it under Clavicle Con left. So then they're just FK chained together with offset groups sandwiched in between. Okay? This is an important point, guys. You need to make sure you get this clear, because this will screw up your rigs if you do not do this. You're going to have controllers that have transformations and rotations on them. We don't want that, and so you got to make sure that you're keeping those offset groups in between. They're kind of the padding, I guess, or whatever you want to think of it. It's basically just it's going to take the translations for us, so we can keep those zeroed out rotations and translations. All right. Okay. So let's go ahead and take this offset group right here. That's going to go under the clavcon on the right. And so now we have basically just an FK chain that is controlling the ARM controllers all the way down. All right. Okay. Let's go ahead and start constraining some stuff together, so we're actually controlling joints. So first thing I want to do, let's go ahead and turn off our geometry, and I'm going to need to go ahead and grab controller, and then it's going to go ahead and grab their respective joint, and then we are going to tell it to control that respective joint. Now we have a couple of options for what type of constraint we're going to be using. What would be one of two options? Parent constraint and orient constraint. Okay, I'm going to be going with orient constraints, since we're going to be switching off between two different sets of joints that are going to be controlling the skinning joints in the arm. Okay, so I'm going to use that to consistently just turn on and off. Okay, so it's going to be orient constraints for this one. So let's go ahead and do a constrain. And so I'm just going to grab the controller, grab the clavicle joint, and this should be we only have one clavicle or two clavicle joints, so we're just going to be the left one. Go to constrain, and then orient. Make sure maintain offset's turned on. Click add. Okay. Next, I'm going to go ahead and grab the FK shoulder con, so parent, and then now we're going to start getting into where we have the three sets of arms. Since this is the FK shoulder con, it needs to control which shoulder joint? The FK shoulder joint. So we're going to grab this guy, and then we're going to go under the FK shoulder joint right here. So make sure we got it. This one. Come here. And that one. And then we're going to go to orient. Okay. Elbow. Going to grab that controller. Then we're going to go to the elbow FK joint. Hit G. Then we're going to go to the, anybody? Wrist. And then we're going to grab which joint? Wrist. No. Wrist. Thank you. All right, wrist FK. Okay. So let's test it out. So, I totally did the wrong side of the body. All right, let's do that again and make sure we actually have the right one. I mean the left one. Yeah, make sure you're actually reading which side you're doing. All right, shoulder, orient, elbow, orient, and then wrist, orient. Okay. There we go. Did I seriously just do skinning?
Yeah.
God dang it. Dude, it's like early in the morning. It's a Monday midweek, it feels like it. You guys are like familiar with America's Funniest Home Videos, right? Okay, like the show's still on. Okay, shoulder, FK, joint, left. There we go, right? Yes. All right. So they got a bunch of them on Hulu now. And we were watching a couple episodes last night. And, all right, let's make sure this works. Okay, that works. Anyway, so they were having like this wisdom tooth video of like this girl like riding home after she had her wisdom tooth, and after she had her wisdom tooth taken out, and like her mom was making a joke about how she sounds like she's Southern because of her teeth were taken out, and she was kind of slurring her words, and she got like really upset. She's like, "But I don't live in the South," and then like she just goes, "Get it together, Kate." It was really funny. Okay. So once we have that, I'm going to go ahead and grab the IK hand con, and then we're going to take that, grab the IK handle, and we're actually going to constrain these two together. Now this is going to be a point constraint, so that when we grab this one and move it around, you'll see that it actually rotates it. And then we're going to take the IK controller, and then we are going to take the IK wrist joint, and then we're going to put a Orient constraint on it. The reason why we're doing these two separate options or two separate things is because we want to control the rotations of that wrist, and then we also want to control the point, or basically the translation of that IK handle, okay? So it's two separate things we're trying to control. So that works. Okay. I should be seeing, let's see, I should be seeing some movement from the skinning joints, but I'm not. So I need to check and see what's going on here. I don't see an Orient constraint on these. I thought I did Orient constraint last class, didn't I? Because we had the arm moving. Yeah, because we had it working. Okay, maybe we only did it for that arm, but that's fine. All right. Okay. So actually, I'm going to back up a second, and I'm going to take, because there's a little bit of a shift in the bones right here, so I'm actually going to take off that point constraint real quick. I'm going to add it back on because it's going to take it out. So hang on. Okay. You guys remember the order that we did the Orient constraints from the FK, IK arm and skinning arms? It's a good review, I guess. You guys remember? Come on. Who are the two parents going to be? And who's the child? So FK, IK, and then the child's going to be skinning. Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and grab child 1, child 2, or parent 1, parent 2, and then child. And then we're going to do constrain, orient, parent, parent, make sure they're both elbow, child, and there we go, duh, duh, and there we go, okay. Put that point constraint back in, constrain, point, there we go. Okay, so take this. I need to put that Orient constraint back in on the wrist joint. So we'll take you. Constrain and then Orient. There we go. Okay, so that works. All right, so that's functional, so that's working. Make sure everything's bending the way it should. Yeah, so it looks good. Okay. You guys want me to go through that one more time? Okay. So make sure we got all that. Got that. And this does have the yeah, and they already have the orients on them, so we're good to go. So let's go ahead and do controller, and then we're going to go ahead and orient constrain these to their respective joints. So we'll start off with clavicle. So grab the controller, grab the joint, constrain, orient, controller. Make sure I got the right one this time. Joint. Okay. All right, so we're just adding in each one of these Orient constraints so that we can control it. Okay. All right, so that's the FK, and then what do I need to do for this IK controller right here? What are the two things it's controlling? The movement of what?
The arm.
Movement of what on the arm? The IK handle. And it's also controlling the what? What is the rotation of the wrist joint? Yeah. Okay. So we'll go ahead and grab the controller, grab the IK handle, and then let's go to point constraint. And then we're going to go ahead and take the controller, and then it's going to be IK wrist, right, constrain, orient. something's not moving it. Okay. See the problem here? So I'm moving the IK handle over. But it doesn't look like it's, the elbow does not look like it's moving half the distance between this joint and this joint. Rotation works, shoulder works. I'm willing to bet that this only has one parent on that Orient constraint because it's following it like, feels like maybe 100%. I don't know. It does not seem like it's working as well as it should. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. It says it is. What is this? Okay, so it's rotating at -1, 12, and 4, so it should be roughly half of this. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be. Okay, we can go back and fix that a little bit later. I want to go and do the switch first. But my fix would be basically just to delete the Orient constraint and then go back in there and re-put it back in. It looks like it is actually functioning, like, at least where, as far as like down here, it says it is. It says it is. They're both at like a value of 1, so it says they're working, but it does not appear to be. But maybe when I put in the switch, it'll be fine. All right. Okay. Okay, something is kind of wonky there. Let me try something. Okay. Okay, check that. Check that. Okay, I'll come back to it. All right, so let's go ahead and start putting in the switch. So the switch, as we already had it set up last class, was this little shape right here. This is basically sitting off the wrist. It's parent constrained to the null joint so that it kind of comes along for the ride. And that null joint it's actually connected to is going to be the one on the skinning joints, right? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open up my set driven key window. Let's go to animation key, set driven key, set. So the driver is going to be this controller, specifically the IKFK switch. What do you think the drivens are going to be? What can we use to switch between the two systems, between the two control schemes? But what objects am I going to be selecting? You're right, it is. That's the action we're performing, but what are the objects we're going to be selecting to control the influence? The what?
The null joints in the IKFK controller?
No, it's actually going to be the Orient constraints. Since we put those on the arms and they are going from the two parents, which are IK and FK, we're going to control which parent has the influence over the child, which is going to be the skinning joint. So let's go ahead and take the shoulder left skinning joint. and that is going to be right here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that Orient Constraint. We can do the elbow and then the wrist as well. And then go ahead and load them as the driven. And then each one of these, we have the different weights or different parents we can switch on and off. So when we have a value, let's say of, let's do value of 0. Let's see, I should have that IKFK switch. Let's say when it's at a value of 0, let's just say that the IK is turned on, okay? And I'm just simply choosing 0 and IK because IK comes first. That's it. If you change the name, it could be FK, whatever, I don't care. It just needs to be consistent for both of the controllers. So if you grab both of these controllers on either wrist and switch them both to 1 or both to 0, they should both do the same thing, okay? So let's do IKFK switch set to 0. So that's going to be our IK. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the first Orient Constraint. I'm going to go to the shoulder FK joint left on the Orient Constraint right here. So let's do skinning joint right here. I'm going to turn off FK. So IK is turned on. Let's do that for all 3 of these. Okay. So then we're going to go to shoulder, skinning, left, joint, Orient Constraint. I'm going to grab both of these right here. And we're going to go ahead and hit key. Do the same thing on the next one. Hit key. And key. Okay. And let's go ahead and test and see. All right. Okay. Looks like the skinning joints are actually following the IK, which is great. So let's go ahead and go over to that controller again. Let's switch this to 1. And then I'm going to go back over to the skinning, and I'm just going to flip the values. So it's going to go to 1, 0 for FK. So we're just activating the FK parent. Okay, you see it's kind of popping over to the FK chain now. And then we're just going to go back, and then we're going to hit key for each one of these. All right. So let's go and test it again. Okay, so IKFK switch it to value of 0. You'll see it pops over to the IK. Value of 1 switches over to FK. And then when we move it, it should have full influence, and we shouldn't have any sort of like lift off or anything like that with the skinning joints. And then if we move this, it shouldn't do anything whatsoever. Okay. Now, very, very important. With this controller or this control scheme, we want to make sure that we're also controlling the visibility of our other control set. Simply because with a rig, you're going to have a ton of joints, a ton of controllers, and it's really honestly in your best interest to just get rid of any visibility of controllers that we're not using at that time. So if we have IK or FK turned on, it's good for us to have the other set visibly turned off. So we don't see the FK controllers if we're using only the IK. It's less visually confusing for us. Okay, so like we don't need to see these three controllers when IK is turned on, and we don't need to see this when FK is on. Make sense? So we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to have driven be the controllers. So we're going to do driven, load driven. There we go. So when the IKFK controller is set to, I guess it'd be a value of 1, we're going to make sure that visibility for the FK is set to on and IK is set to off. So I'm going to go ahead and go over to here. We're going to do visibility set to 0. So now that's turned off, IK is, or FK is turned on. So I'm going to go and hit key. And then what we'll do is go ahead and switch this over to value of 0. Switch visibility off. Grab the IK, visibility on, and then key. Make sure visibility is selected. So let's go and test that. So switch over to 1. This turns on. We can see it. We can use it. Turn it off. Go over to the other side. We can see the IK controller, but we do not see any of the FK. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? Okay. Let's go ahead and put in a couple of joints for the spine. Let's go and put in our root joint, or root controller, I mean. So controllers for the spine and the root. So let's do. Okay, and we'll do some spine controllers. So let's just do some, what would look good? Do some of these. All right, let's make sure we can actually see these coming out the outside of the body. Go and freeze our transformations. Delete by type history. And we can just go ahead and just kind of FK chain these together. So I'm going to go and take child parent, parent, child parent, P, and then take this one and hit P as well. Oh, you're right, I didn't. Thank you. Let's make sure it didn't mess up anything further down. Okay, cool. All right, so the clavicles, I'm going to go and take them, grab their offset groups. So I'm going to grab this guy and this one. And we're going to put both of these under the top spine con. So we're going to go ahead and just parent to under there. Make sure we go ahead and name these. We're supposed to get any rain today. Thought we were done with it. Great. I'm looking forward to that. Huh? Seriously, it's going to get down to freezing? Huh. I don't know it got down to 30 degrees around here. Man. I guess you guys better go buy all your bread and milk, right? Alrighty. So let's go ahead and grab the root con, grab the root joint. Want to go ahead and use a parent constraint. Come on. Then we'll just do another parent constraint here, and a parent constraint there. And then another one. So let's go ahead and test it, see how it's working. Okay. Where are you, buddy? Why are you not under anything? Oh, he was a duplicate, that's why. I don't think I should, yeah, I wasn't actually needing him. Yeah, okay. Well, no, wait, so? Nah, that's screw it, we'll just take him out. He's really not gonna have any flexibility anyways right here because of the backpack. So, let's take that out. Alright. We're good. Control all this, yes. Control all that, yes. Control this, yes. That. Yes. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and give it a world con. So that'll be the world. And then inside of that, I'm also going to go ahead and give it a placement con. Yeah.
Placement con is this to move the character within the scene? What's the point of the world con?
They're both really for that point. So the world con, basically you put it wherever you need to. The placement con is just basically just a second tier world con. If you need to move like the entire character for whatever reason, let's say if you're doing an orbiting walk, you can move the placement con out away from the world con and just rotate the world con, so he kind of walks in a circle. So it's kind of easy to do that. Maybe you need him to walk back to like a certain point. So if it's like a mid shot where it's like waist and up, you can just move that placement con, and then you don't have to actually animate the feet. They kind of just stick with the rest of the rig. So it's basically just gives you an offset point to work with if you need it. It's not something you always will need, but I find it really good to have just in case. So I've worked with some rigs that have like 3 extra cons like in between like the root and the world con. They'll just have like extra ones you can just turn on for whatever reason. It gets really kind of convoluted, but whatever, people use them. All right, placement con, world con. Go ahead and let's grab both of these. Freezer transformations. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and take the root. And I'm actually going to go ahead and take both the IK cons right here. And we're going to go ahead and put them under the placer. What happened there? Something funky is going on with that arm, honestly. What we need to happen though is basically we just need to put these under the placer so that when we move this guy, it moves everything. Alright, why are you flipping? It's flipping the controller. Okay, that's really weird. Alright. So, let's maybe address the issue that's going on right here. So, let's go ahead and take this guy. Okay. So let's figure out why we're having this issue. I'm going to go and grab the skinning joints. I want to test and see kind of like where we're running into problems, like if it's more of like an Orient Constraint issue or an issue with, it could be just orientations, like the orientation of the joints. Maybe there was something wrong when I did the mirror and it actually kind of screwed it up a little bit. So let's figure that out. So let's go under skinning joints. Clavicle right, shoulder, skinning. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and take off and just turn off the IK. Okay. Okay, so that's moving. And that's moving. Okay, and that's moving. Okay. So let's go back here, flip the values. That works. Okay. Okay. So the Orient Constraint appears to be working fine. Let's go ahead and turn this back over to FK. Okay. And I'm going to go and take this 0 back out. Appears to be going back to its normal position. Oh, I remember. Okay. I didn't grab the offset groups. That was the problem. When I did the parenting, I was just grabbing the controllers. Guarantee you that was the problem. All right, let's just let me test that real quick. All right, so I'm gonna grab offset, and then yeah, that was the problem. Yeah, because I forgot to grab it when I did the left one. The left one worked fine, but you notice I get all these extra transformations on it. So let me back up. Okay. All right, so I don't have enough on my undo history. What I can try is, let's try this. Just move it back under that group. Let's see, it flipped it. Okay, so we'll just unparent it. Okay, well, tell you what. Make sure you grab the offset group before you parent it under the placement controller. Because in order to fix this, we'll actually have to essentially break a constraint, zero it out, put it back under the offset group, and then get it to be re-parent constraint, Orient constrainted back to that controller. So it's fixable, but it takes a little bit of time. So don't do this at 8 o'clock in the morning and don't be tired. You got to grab the offset group and make sure you put it under the placement group or placement controller, which is what I should have done. So, as evidenced by this right here, because once this is placed under the placer, where'd you go? It should be fine. Yeah, so once I got under here, it's just fine. Okay. All right. All right, let's do, well, anyway, let me ask you guys if you have any questions right now. You guys good? Yeah.
So the last, mistake you made, was that just for when putting it under the placement or when you originally constrained it?
No, it's when I was putting it under the placement, I grabbed the wrong thing, and so I put the controller under the placement, which is what caused these translates and rotates from the offset group originally to get moved over to the actual controller. So since I took it out of that group and put it under something else, then it got that all moved over. Yeah. Actually, what I might be able, well, no, it really wouldn't work, but Let me just go ahead and fix this real quick. What you got, Ansem?
Can you move that Oricon? Just want to see.
Yeah, so with the Worldcon moving, it should move the IK controllers with it. Okay? But when we grab the root, it's going to be like the foot controllers, where it's not going to move the IK hands with it. They should be independent. Okay?
So like as a general rule, if you have IK handles, like they will be placed under the placement and upward.
Right. Right. There are times, and this is depending on what the rig needs to do, because a lot of times rigs are built to do whatever the animator needs it to specifically do, but a lot of times what you'll see is controllers like hand controllers. Actually, let me show you an example. They'll actually have parents that are like specific to body parts. So if you need to put, where is it? We'll open him up. You can actually parent it like to say the chest, the waist, the face, so that you can actually move it from place to place. It's going to be a similar setup to the eye controller that we talked about last week, where we could parent it from, let's say, the head controller or the world, just depending on whatever you need it to be. And that's, you know, a little more advanced, but it's totally within y'all's reach to do. So like on this guy, the Tengu, he has go ahead and turn on his IK, and then try to remember where it is. Follow. So right here it has a follow command. So if it's on the main, which is also the Worldcon, it will follow that. But if I click here and change follow to I can change it over to the Tengu Spine top controller, which is going to be this guy right here. So that means that if I move that, the IK will still follow the top of the body. So if I grab like this one right here, you'll see it'll follow that. So that's really if like you wanted to maybe have him like picking up a box, because if you're picking up the box, then your hand's going to be kind of glued to the box. But you can also have it placed to where as you're moving the body around, like that, is basically locking down that movement at that specific pivot point. Or we could move it over to the root. So it's not going to necessarily follow this anymore, but it will follow the root controller. So it has some uses there. And then there's also another one where it's a root secondary. And so it doesn't necessarily follow the root as much as it follows the secondary control, which can be like hips, if you want to give them like a hip sway. So if you want to kind of dig into that, like that's like an option for it. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Yeah.
Would you ever put in limitations into the rig?
Put in limitations for what?
For the rig, like in terms of movement?
Like if you don't want it to stretch beyond a certain point, you could. Kind of at that point, it might be up to like the animator to determine where they want that to be, if they wanted any sort of limitation. It really kind of depends on like what you want. Like I said, general rule of thumb is I kind of tend to let my rigs that are more organic have much more flexibility than like inorganic stuff. Just simply because it's a lot easier to break a rig that's supposed to be mechanical, but you know it still happens either way. So, all right. Any questions about the IKFK setup? Okay. So for this, we're going to be keeping an eye on making sure that we can take one controller, and we will have one switch. It'll be 0 to 1. That will control the Orient constraints between the IK and FK joints, going to a third set of skinning joints. And it also will control the visibility of the respective controllers. So when you have IK turned on, that means that the Orient constraints for all three of the skinning joints are going to be set to one of those sets, right? As well as visibility. So that's all going to be set up through the set-driven key menu, right? Right, Emily? Does anyone want to bring her up? Okay. So the FK is going to be under a clavicle joint and also a clavicle controller. The IK controller itself is going to be controlling specifically two things. It's going to be controlling, what's the first thing it'll control? What? Wrist. Yeah, wrist rotation. So that's going to be through what kind of constraint? Orient. And then the second thing it's going to control is the translation of what? IK handle through what kind of constraint? No. Point. The reason with that is because there is no rotation on an IK handle. So there's no need for us to go ahead and put in a parent constraint. A point constraint will do exactly the same job. So we just go with a point constraint. Yeah.
Besides simplifying down, did we get functional difference?
Not really. Okay. So the IK controller is going to be, the IK offset group that the IK controller is going to be in is going to be parent nested under what? For it to follow the world con. Placement con. And the placement con is parent nested under the world con. Yes. True or false? For this particular setup that we're doing for this assignment, the IK controller is going to follow the root controller when you move it. No. False. Yep, it needs to be independent. So, just like right here, it's independent. Now, what will follow the root through a series of children? Which one of the control schemes will follow it? Well, yeah, skinning's going to follow whatever it's being told to follow, but FK. Yeah, so FK is.
So FK always follows the root controller.
Yeah, indirectly, because it's the child of the clavicle, which is the child of the top spine, which is the child of the mid spine, which is the child of the bottom spine, which is the child of the root.
So the FK controller scheme is important, but not so important to where it can be all independent by itself.
It usually will not be independent by itself. You could do a setup where you would have some level of independence for the orientation. Like say if you rotate the chest over, maybe the arm stays in this position, but you can still control it through FK. That is a possibility, but we're just going to keep it simple for this assignment. So let's just say no. It's just going to follow. Yeah. To follow the what?
To follow the character and everything just stay with it.
I mean, it does when we grab the world controller, but there's different levels of following things. Now, we don't want, like say with the leg controllers from like last week, we don't want the reverse foot setup leg or feet controllers to follow the root, because that kind of defeats the purpose of being able to make the character walk, because we need to be able to have independence of the hips and the legs. So, yeah. All right, one last thing I forgot to mention, but it's going to be useful. I need to control the elbow in some way, shape, or form. So in the IK control scheme. So how can I do that? We did it last week.
So that way, the constraint for it, like you did for the
Okay, you want to walk me through it? Yeah, you do. Come on, walk me through it. I forgot. I don't know how to do this. I got a baby. I don't have any memory of anything, as evidenced by my.
So you give it its own little controller, and where it's got previous information on the controller.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have history. Then, you grab the controller first, and then I can't remember if it was the clavicle joint or if it was the wrist joint.
It's neither.
You took the
It's neither. I mean, you got one. And it's. We're not grabbing any joints.
Is that the IK?
Yes.
Oh.
So grab the controller, grab the IK handle. Then I'm going to go to constrain and pull vector. Yeah. So now I can control that. All right. I'm going to go ahead and parent this guy. Let's just. I'm going to group them real quick. Elbow, IK, con. And I want to go ahead and put that. Brittany, where am I going to put that?
On the bottom.
On the bottom of what?
The last joint.
What joint? Where am I going to take this offset group? This IK elbow con group. Where should it be placed in the hierarchy?
It's a fixed elbow, so it should be in between shoulder and
No. No. Can anyone help her? Why?
Because it needs to follow, it needs to be independent, but also follow the model.
Exactly. So let's go ahead and take this and put it under that placement con. All right. Okay. Let's talk about skinning. Think about the ribbon spine and how we chose some joints but not other joints to skin. Okay? We had some joints that were control joints. They existed there solely to control things. And some joints were there just solely to be skinned to, right? So, what joints in this rig are we going to be using in order to skin? Which ones? Ansem, I think you had an answer.
the main joints, like the skinning joints.
So are you talking what skinning joints are we talking about? Give me a more specific answer. So let's try it this way. Am I going to use the root? Yeah. What about the tail joints? Okay, yes. Now if this was set up as like a spine, like a ribbon spine, I would be choosing which joints? for the ribbon spine?
The
The follicle joints. Okay. What about the clavicle joint? Yes. Okay. What about the IKFK shoulder joints? No. What about the skinning shoulder joint?
Yes.
Okay. Which one of the elbow joints would I do? Skinning. What about the wrist? Okay. What about the null?
No.
No, not really. You could skin to it if you needed like something just to hold on to some weight, but you don't need it. And then you have each one of the finger joints. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Good. What about all the joints up in the head? Yeah. The backpack. This one right here. Yeah. Yeah, we could use it. It needs something for this thing to hold on to. What about these two joints right here, these hinge joints? Yeah. So we need something for the wings to actually hinge off of. So, yeah. So basically with this setup, the only joints we're not going to be skinning to are going to be the IK and the FK joint chains. Okay? Okay. All right. Obviously, a ton of organization needs to be done, but you guys have already evidenced that you guys are pretty good at that, so I'm not going to go over that. Yeah.
Do you want us to put controllers for the fingers?
Yes. Yes, you have to. This has to be a finished rig. So you guys should know how to do finger controllers. Yeah, we should be able to figure that one out. Okay. Let me throw this at you actually. The finger joints are going to have FK joint or FK controllers, right? Because we're controlling for each individual finger. Now, what do those get parented under? Why?
Because like it's part of the hand.
It is part of the hand. But why the null?
It's the connector between the hand and the elbow or the wrist joint.
Those are facts. But why specifically the null? Like why not the wrist, or why not the FK wrist or the IK wrist, or why not the FK wrist controller?
Because so those controllers can move when you're switching between IK handle and FK.
Exactly. Will, what were you saying?
She said.
Okay. So when you guys do the fingers, you want to make sure that, honestly, the way I would set it up is have a have your FK finger controllers set up. Make sure you have your offset groups for each one, just like we did for the arm. And then you're going to have a group with those offset groups put inside. So that's going to be, let's say, your left hand finger con offset group. Okay? So that is going to be parent constrained under the null joint in the hand. Not nested, but parent constrained. Because that needs to follow the hand controller, or the hand itself, but it doesn't need to switch between one system and another. It just needs to stick with the main skinning hand. Okay? If you don't, and you end up putting it under the FK wrist con, which is logical up until now, that's what we probably would do, you're going to end up tearing your fingers off. Because it'll look all nice and functional when you're in FK, but as soon as you switch it over to IK, let's say the IK controller's over here, the whole arm's going to go bloop, but your fingers are going to stay put. So you're going to get some really weird tearing off things going on. Okay?
You said throw that under the null.
Yeah, the joint right here. But you're not going to be nesting it. You need to do a constraint, because we need to make sure we keep all of our controllers together in a controller group, joints together in a joint group, and geometry together in a mesh group. Okay? All right. Yes.
How much movement do you want on the jetpack?
As much as they need. That's like a non-answer, isn't it? But I mean, you need to make that creative decision.
I wanna do Buzz Lightyear.
Say what?
I said I wanna do Buzz Lightyear wings.
You could. I mean, what would you think would be the natural movement for the wings right here?
Just like, for those ones up and down rotation and then like movement.
Yeah, that seems about right. I kind of just threw them on there. I didn't really think too much about the actual movement, so I'll let you guys make that decision.
Like different for everybody, or we all just choose a movement now?
No, you're gonna make that decision when you're rigging it.
Okay.
So, like, what would naturally make sense for the wing here to move? So, I would agree up and down, rotating, maybe a little bit of backwards and forwards, or pivoting. So, yeah. If you wanted to, you could put a limiter on that. That would make sense. You don't have the wings clipping through like the backpack or whatever.
Yeah, they don't spin.
I mean, they could spin. I mean, you can have them spin as much as you want. I'm just saying, like, you may not want to have them like flap up and like clip through the backpack, or flap down too far and like clip through the shoulders, or maybe like fold down, because like really they wouldn't be able to fold down that much before they start clipping through everything.
I was thinking about like on an airplane, on the wings, like
Yeah.
they don't.
Well, the whole thing would rotate. There's no place in there for it to like have like a fin that like flaps up and down like bird's feathers on an airplane wing. Yeah. Okay. Any last questions? Otherwise, I'm gonna turn you guys loose and let you start working on this. Okay.
How to limit again?
I'll show you where it is.
Or where is that? Okay.
It's right there.
Just like the fingers, so you get like the group, and
What are you asking?
when you constrain the group, the fingers with the no Orient constraint, right?
No.
Parent?
Parent. So which one's going to be the parent? The group or the joint?
The drum.
Yes. Yes. You got it. Katie, you can't pull your face off.
Not yet.
Okay. All right, guys. I wish you the best of luck. This is due on Monday. So get her done.